B2B Cambodia, the portal for business use in Cambodia.
So we're going to go ahead and get ready for our panel discussion. So I'd like to invite our speakers and moderator.
You have mentioned the main issue that some taxpayer they face is about the share transfer. The gain on the share transfer when the shareholder they have the share transfer in the Cambodian company. So I'm curious to understand whether the new law on taxation has captured any discussion on this issue.
There is a definition or a defined term which refers to investment assets, which arguably can include shares. But I believe that the tax department's perspective is that the PRACA 346 and the new capital gains chapter, with reference to shares, only refers to the transfer of shares in companies which are listed on the Cambodian Stock Exchange. So there is still a degree of, unfortunately, a degree of uncertainty on this capital gains tax issue. And to be clear, the tax department sees this issue as not capital gains tax per se, but more tax on income. So a slight distinction there insofar as I mentioned before, Article 7, taxable income, refers to capital gains. Historically, the general consensus was that refers to capital gains that are derived by a Cambodian taxpayer. The tax department's perspective is that it also extends to gains that are made by a shareholder, a non-resident shareholder in a Cambodian company. And that's where the issue currently lies. So unfortunately, Ravan, not too much more clarity on that issue in the new law on taxation.
For the new law on taxation, what are the three most, important topics that you think that the taxpayer or investor or the audience here, they should be aware of?
The general anti-avoidance rule is probably number one, in my view. The increase in penalties, I think, is very important. It was quite clear during the development of the law on taxation that the officials from the Royal Government of Cambodia spent a lot of time discussing with the Ministry of Justice. So there are a lot of developments around, for example, the confiscation of assets, the ability for the tax department to dispose of and use assets in lieu of a taxpayer failing to pay their taxes, the ability for the tax department to freeze bank accounts. There's now timeframes over when a third party must provide information to a tax officer. I believe it's 30 days now. So second point is just a whole raft of additional powers that are given to the tax department, which I think we all need to take time to go through and understand the impact for ourselves and for our clients. And the third point, just to throw it out there, some of these taxes which previously existed and are now incorporated under the new law, maybe some people were not aware of. So say, for example, the rental property chapter. Some people may not be aware that if you are an individual and you rent your property, you have to register with the tax office in your Sangat where the property is located. And you have to pay 10% tax on the rental income. So some of these taxes which previously existed but were not so much on the radar, I think will be a lot more on the radar now that they have been codified in the new law on taxation.
So for you, instance of the new tax law, do you think that the government will impose more tax rate on some specific sector or not? According to the new draft law, some article they said that the tariff of each sector might be subject to the sub-degree. Yeah. So from your experience or your networking, do you think that the government gonna impose more tax on specific sector or not?
In the new law on taxation, I made the point that it seems to be that it may only be charged once now, as opposed to on each subsequent transaction also. It is interesting to note that the rate of public lighting tax is not stated in the law on taxation. So from memory, I think it's 3%, right? So by reducing the number of times public lighting tax is charged and not putting the rate in the law on taxation seems to indicate maybe there might be a review of the public lighting tax rate. So that would be one thing that I would say could be potentially a possibility. And I think, noting your hand signal, I think it would go up rather than go down if it's only been charged one time. Yeah.
Seeking clarity on whether a business clearly involved in education, not necessarily higher education, but perhaps adult education or corporate training, would potentially qualify, would not be qualified without that registration with the ministry. And I guess more broadly, what is that establishment word since it's changed in the Prakar?
Unfortunately, the ministry order doesn't clearly define educational establishment. It just says that any business that is purely providing educational services. However, a common practice is that the educational establishment is recognized as an educational establishment if it is licensed by either of those two ministries. So there is the risk that if a business is providing technical training, that would definitely be an educational service. Now, to become an educational establishment, then I would advise to get the license from one of the ministries. Otherwise, you're facing risk that you will not be extended the relief.
Mr. Casey talked about at length the tax relief or incentives for educational institutions. Are there new or enhanced tax incentive or relief for other sectors under the new tax laws?
The new law on investment has a large range of listed activities, which qualify for investment incentives. The list of activities are broader than what they were under the previous law on investment. I can't number them all, but they are quite extensive.
Yes, so there's Sub-Decree 124, which was issued in 2018, and that provides a number of incentives for SMEs as well as targeted industries. So it might be worth visiting Sub-Decree 124 and reviewing what incentives might be available for certain industries.
Have a great afternoon and hope to see you at our next AmCham event. Thank you very much.